And good Friday afternoon to you. Welcome in, everybody, to Off of the Helmets, courtesy of our friends at East Coast Sports Invest. I am Brady Tinker, planted firmly in the middle of the North Dallas area where I can get to Cowboys Nation over there at the Star in a moment's notice. Lots going on. It's an exciting Cowboys offseason. I hope you are as fired up as I am. The great thing about the NFL is, especially when you have this type of team, there's never an offseason. So the Cowboys are fresh back from the combine in Indy. So let's talk Cowboys football as the team preps for the draft. With last week's combine already behind them, they had lots of interviews. They had lots of stopwatches. They put their eyes on people they wanted, and they talked to a lot of people that they liked. So the Cowboys come back very excited about the draft. Let's also prep for a new offense designed by Mike McCarthy that will be implemented by Brian Schottenheimer. And let's prep for serious free agent discussions. We will begin with the Cowboys' existing free agents that they want, and I think that you want, to stay on this team. Leighton Vander Esch and the like, Donovan Wilson, et cetera, and some others. And then let's get into free agents that will be out and about and that will be available to be signed. It is not a thick or impressive free agent class to begin with. Also, you've already taken care of keeping your running back. So we're going to talk about all that in the next fast-paced 30 minutes, talking Cowboys football right here on Off of the Helmets. So welcome into Off of the Helmets, courtesy of East Coast Sports Investors, a full show, no messing around here. The draft is in my hometown of Kansas City, and no, that is not an honor that you get when you win the Super Bowl. Next year's draft, I believe, is in Detroit, and it looks like the 25 draft will most certainly be in Green Bay. So it is a rotating thing that the NFL does. I remember 25 years ago when Norm Hitzkiss, a radio Hall of Famer here out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, asked the NFL, could he come to the NFL draft some 25 years ago, 27 years ago maybe? He said, can we come to the draft and cover the draft? The NFL was like, you want to come cover the NFL draft? Whatever, come on. Now, since then, it is a 3-day, well, really the first 2 days of the big days, a televised event that all of us are ready for because anything that NFL touches turns to gold, except its rules and officiating. Free agency first. The Cowboys free agents, and there are several that are integral to keeping on this team and to keeping the momentum that this team has built. And actually, as I look at all of these, there's only one that I'm truly worried about costing more money than we want it to cost that might cost you that player. We will start with Leighton Vander Esch, and it's not him. At 27 years old, Leighton Vander Esch, his rookie season, made such an impact. We were calling the Wolf, was it? Wasn't he the Wolf? And scraping the ground. And he was so good that along with him, Jalen Smith was made to look really, really good. And they both got nice contract bumps in their second year in the NFL. Okay. Vander Esch, however, has spinal stenosis in his neck. He has since high school. It has been an injury problem for him. He's had brutal surgeries. He also has had a collarbone and an ankle since he's been a Dallas Cowboy. And I don't think since his rookie year, he's someone that people in the NFL are looking at saying, boy, wouldn't we like to have that player? But the truth is, as Cowboys fans, the way he has fit in with this Dan Quinn defense, especially in the last year and a half, let's say, has been excellent. Excellent. He has been faster. He has had more tackles for loss. He has been the top 3 in tackling people on this Dallas Cowboys football team. And maybe most importantly, he has a true grasp and understanding of what it is that Dan Quinn is trying to do with this offense. And I think we've all been pretty darn impressed with defense. I think we've all been pretty impressed with Dan Quinn's defense the last 2 years. As I've said over and over again, they led the NFL in turnovers each of the last 2 years. Nobody has led the NFL in turnovers in back-to-back seasons since the early 70s Pittsburgh Steelers. There is something to turning the ball over. There is something to negative plays, to hitting the quarterback, and to doing things that set up your offense to score points. And I think we'll get to this again, and we get to it almost every week. This offense, while scoring lots of points, has had problems in the last 2 years reaching sort of that next level, completing that ultimately all-important drive when you need to have it. The Cowboys haven't been able to do that, and it's a fine line because if they led the NFL in scoring the last 2 years, in total, I think yes is the answer if you take both years. But have they led them in the most important of times, at the biggest of times to win games, to turn momentum in games? The answer is no. So the Cowboys defense continuing to set Dak up, not at the 20-yard line, but at the 28-yard line or the 30 or the 40 because of flipping the field, because of turnovers, because of making plays, is integral to this team taking that next step from a top 8 team in the NFL to a top 4 team in the NFL. That's what we're shooting for. Let's get to a championship game. By the time you get to an NFC championship game, you will have played very, very well, and you will have such momentum that there will be no doubt that you can then go on to play in and hopefully win a Super Bowl. So Leighton Vander Esch I wouldn't say he's at the top of my list, but these 4 guys that I'm going to give you are all, as far as I'm concerned, of the utmost importance to keeping the momentum this defense has. Are they irreplaceable? Probably none of them are. Would it be great to keep the cohesiveness and this momentum the defense has? Absolutely. Is this a good place to spend your money? I believe it is. So Leighton Vander Esch will be 27. Started hot in his career, went cold, went injured. The Cowboys passed on his 5th-year rookie option, yet got him back last year in 2022 on a sweet deal, and he made it pay off for the Cowboys and now hopefully made it pay off for himself. I'm not even really going to get into numbers. I would imagine 3 for 20 on Vander Esch with 18 guaranteed, probably gets it done. Cowboys would probably have an out in 2 years. Donovan Wilson is the next guy, has been so good and has come so far since being drafted in from Texas A&M that this one is probably a mistake that he doesn't already have a contract. And I was a little critical of Stephen Jones last weekend that if you are a, quote, as the Cowboys love to say over and over, a draft and develop team, which is a terrific thing to be in a salary capped NFL. If you are a draft and develop team, then the true key beyond drafting and developing is identifying who the players are that you want to keep, and in year 2 or 3, getting contract extensions for them so that they can be on your team 5 or 6 years, okay? 5, 6, 7 years. Depending on their bodies and how many hits they take, that's about how long an NFL player stays young and fast enough and still can be special. Donovan Wilson now is a free agent. The Lion, they call him, was second on the team in total tackles, I believe, with 101. Actually, I'm wrong. He was first on the team with 77 solos at 101 total tackles. Did you know this? I mean, did you even realize? 5 sacks, an interception, 2 forced fumbles, and 1 recovered fumble. Now, you pair him, as you remember, with Javon Kearse and Malik Hooker, who are both coming back, and that's 3 safeties. And in the history of the Cowboys, since Tom Landry has been gone, when was the last time the Cowboys ever looked at you and said, well, we really value safeties, right? Other than Darren Woodson, what safeties has this team truly valued since essentially Jerry Jones has been in the building? Almost none. But there is no refuting the fact that the durability, the flexibility of these 3 safeties, Donovan Wilson, Javon Kearse, and Malik Hooker, have taken this Cowboys defense, not by themselves, but have taken this Cowboys defense to another level. They are a big hand in the turnovers and in the sacks and in the chaos that is caused because all 3 of these guys are so fast. They are all ball hawks. They all tackle very well, and they all can do almost anything in Dan Quinn's defense. So give me Leighton Vander Esch and give me Donovan Wilson back on this team at very reasonable prices. Number 4 is Connor McGovern, and you may be saying, are you kidding? The first 2 years he was here, I didn't even want to watch him ever again. I was turning off my television. You need to get over that. Connor McGovern has become a very nice left guard on this team, and he is fully capable, if needed, at spelling Tyler Bidays at center. That makes him very valuable. He is getting over an injury. Connor McGovern is going to be fine. He's a guy that, you know what, you may not even remember that he was a free agent. You may say you may not care. But if this is a defensive first operation that then is going to put in a new offense, which is primarily going to be based on quick passes and maybe more runs than passes in this season, if that's possible, then Connor McGovern's a big deal. So Connor McGovern on the offense, and the other offensive player I really want is Terrence Steele. And this seems to be amongst my peers an assumption that Terrence Steele, who is an unrestricted free agent, that's wrong. He's a restricted free agent, but the Cowboys do not have a lot of ability to make you as another team pay because he was an undrafted selection. So since he wasn't drafted, he doesn't come with an automatic price if someone else signs Terrence Steele out from underneath you. Now, I think, again, the Cowboys are in good shape here. We missed Terrence Steele in the playoffs. He really, as the season progressed last year, just became better and better. You heard about him less and less. He has the perfect attitude for a tackle in this league. He wants to be a Cowboy, and he became a very good player right up to the point where he got hurt last year. So the injury, while it certainly affected the Cowboys and their ability maybe to win a second or third playoff game, maybe turns out to be something pretty good at this point when you're talking about re-signing him. So I think Terrence Steele, the Cowboys get no compensation if he leaves, but as I have a feeling, that's it. That's all I can tell you. They've been on the phone. They've had lots of conversations with his agent. He wants to stay, and I think Terrence Steele will stay. And if you're going to run the football as effectively as the Cowboys want to, which is, quote, better than they did last year, better, the ability to line up and say, here we come, we're running, fuck you, we're running. If that's the offense that this Cowboys team wants to have, mixed with a short West Coast passing offense, then your offensive line better be good. So we're going to go through that in just a minute. But Terrence Steele is a key. If Terrence Steele is here, right, and you have Smith, the second-year player on the left side, pretty good start to your team. And then don't forget Zach Martin's over there at right guard, and he's the best right guard maybe ever. So that's a good foundation for your offensive line. We'll get to more of that in a moment. Other free agents, you now know that Tony Pollard will not be a free agent. He has been signed with the franchise tag at roughly $10 million. You can make arguments either way, okay? None of the last 15 Super Bowl champions have paid a feature running back over, I think, $2.5 million. Now, coincidence or not, it is not vogue now to pay running backs, almost period, okay? But the Cowboys did franchise Tony Pollard, and I think the timing of it makes sense in that Zeke is over the hill at 2.6 yards a carry in the last 6 or 7 games of the season. Zeke's had a terrific career, but the Cowboys, and I'll get to this in a second, are going to cut bait with Zeke. So what other running backs do you have? If you're going to be a running back-driven team, it does matter that the running back has run behind an offensive line for timing and rhythm and cohesion and the way guys block and the way a running back sees it. Tony Dorsett used to talk to me about running to color, meaning he's running to, the blue and gray asses of the Cowboys, and he's running away from the opposite colors. It was as simple as that. But the more he talked to me about it, the more he talked about he knew hips were going to go this direction, shoulders are going to go this direction, and he could read it and he could feel off it instinctively without having to think about it. And that comes with playing on the same team with the same guys for a certain amount of time. So Pollard staying is a big deal. And I heard it best from a scout on the radio, and I can't remember who it was, who said, listen, it's almost a no-brainer for the Cowboys to franchise tag Pollard, even if it's $10 million, because you don't franchise tag runners, but you do franchise tag playmakers. And Pollard is both those things. Will probably go from roughly 37 catches last year, if he stays healthy all year, to 55 or 60 catches, maybe more. So now you're getting into a different territory here. You're getting into a 1,000-yard rusher and a 500-yard receiver of the football who did get better picking up blitzes. So Pollard stays, thumbs up for that. Zeke, the Cowboys have gone quiet on Zeke. He has come out through his agent and said, hey, I'm willing to take a pay cut, probably, quote, a massive pay cut to stay. I'd like to stay here and finish as a Cowboy. There's a possibility that happens. But the truth is, it would probably need to be a cut and re-sign deal where Zeke takes a deal for, I'm telling you, $1 million probably is the threshold for bringing Zeke back. Pre-June 1st cut, the Cowboys would save $5 million. He would be $11.86 million of dead cap space. But post-June 1st, which is the most brutal cut, right, because you're not giving your guy the best chance to sign on with somebody else, the Cowboys are trying to be as kind and respectful here as they can. He has been a very good Dallas Cowboy. But post-June 1st cut for Zeke Elliott, they will save nearly $11 million against the salary cap, and his dead cap number will be under $6 million. Okay, so that's a big deal. I believe his body is finished. He had, 1,000 carries at Ohio State and so many 300 carry seasons. Listen, this isn't anything other than there's only so many hits a human body can take. And it seems that every year that I watch the NFL, it is more and more violent. The athletes are faster and bigger and stronger. and being a running back, trying to clear that offensive line and then get hit by a flying linebacker or a flying safety with a big paw on you from a defensive tackle. It's a brutal game. It's a brutal game, and that's how we are where we are with Zeke Elliott. Free agents coming that have been on other teams. This, for me, this is a key. And Stephen Jones hasn't wanted to do this hardly at all in the last 5 years. The Cowboys got to some point back maybe in the Roy Williams era or the Joey Galloway era or whatever it was, where Stephen got so upset by signing free agents to big deals that seemed to back up on them. And he convinced himself, and he's not necessarily wrong, that free agency in the NFL is not the way for your football team to get better or to make your football team good. And as a rule, I think I would agree with that. Rarely does it work out because guys become free agents in what year 4, 5, 6, whatever it is, 7. And we just talked about how brutal this game is. How long does a body hold up? Not that long. Does a guy getting his second contract for $20, $30 million all of a sudden realize he's set for life and sort of relax? Human nature may say yes. So free agency in the NFL is fraught with pitfalls and pratfalls, but there are deals to be had. And back to the point of 24 wins in the last 2 seasons. Jerry Jones is 80 whatever. This team is not rebuilding. It's doing its best to year refurbish, add new dynamic talent, but never thinking about anything but making it to an NFC championship game. If that's the case, there's a wide receiver needed here. Jacoby Myers is one of my favorites. Played last year in New England. I believe was an original draft pick of New England. I may be wrong on that. But last year, 800 yards and 6 touchdowns. You're like, meh. Mac Jones was his quarterback. Bill Belichick was his head coach and the guy who basically ran the offense. That was a terrible offensive football team. I have a feeling you could get it through on Jacoby Myers for 3 years, $15 million, $18 million guaranteed. And that number does not have a pushback for me. CD Lamb needs some more help. I don't know what's going to happen with Michael Gallup. Still young enough, big enough, strong enough, and physical enough, but he's kind of been injury prone. You just have to say it. So hopefully Gallup by next season will be all the way back from the knee surgeries that he had. And all of a sudden you'd have a great trio with Jacoby Myers, CD Lamb, and Michael Gallup, and 2 young tight ends running around. The other name that you're certainly thinking of, because I was pushing it in November, as was everybody else, is, well, what about OBJ? It's sexy. I know the Giants are interested in OBJ. He's sexy. 3 ACL injuries is not sexy. The Cowboys thought, based on the calendar, he would be ready to help them in November and December last year and on into the playoffs. We all thought that, and he wasn't. Jerry Jones went so far as to say maybe December 1st, I expect Odell Beckham to join the Cowboys soon. Okay, he's a storyteller, but I thought that was going to happen too. And at the time, it looked like it's going to be a $15 million number. And by the way, you're going to have to pay him 3 years. And Jerry basically came out and said, if he's healthy and ready to help us now going into the playoffs, I'll suck on that 3 years, $15 million a year with some sort of out after $30 million. And at the time, I was there because the Cowboys did have momentum. This NFC wasn't that good. The Cowboys had a real chance. Get him, I was saying to you. Get him. It's imperative. Get him, especially with Gallup's injury. They didn't get him because Odell Beckham Jr. wasn't ready to play. Not even close. So he is now working out for teams, and apparently in the next few days, a lot of NFL teams will go watch him. But if the number is roughly $15 million a year and it's not a one-year deal, out on Odell Beckham Jr., okay? You needed him in November. You don't have to have him now. Other free agents. DJ Chark, I believe, will be a free agent for the 3rd straight year. Started in Jacksonville, went to Detroit, and is now a free agent again. Only 26 years old, played in Detroit last year, did not have the season that I thought he would have because they had a couple of their wide receivers sort of get ahead of him. But DJ Chark's physical skills, remember, in his sophomore season, like 2019, he had 73 catches, over 1,000 yards, and 8 touchdowns, and went to the Pro Bowl. He's really never played for a good quarterback. He got Trevor Lawrence in his rookie season when in that debacle when they weren't very good offensively. And other than that, he's played for a whole bunch of guys named Joe, not Montana. So he hasn't had a good quarterback. I think in this quick passing system, as big as he is, 6'3", maybe 220, runs in the 4.4 range. I mean, this is a physical specimen. And when you watch him in an NFL game, and even the last few years, and you see a couple of plays, you're like, whoa, oh my. Who's that? Oh, that's right. DJ Chark. I heard of him. I have a feeling about DJ Chark. If you could get him at the right number, this could be, it just may have taken this long for DJ Chark to be ready to break out. Jacoby Myers, Odell Beckham Jr., no thanks, and DJ Chark. Others, Juju Smith-Schuster, still young, ended up with under 1,000 yards with Pat Mahomes in Kansas City, but still looks like a pretty good player. McCole Hardman, also from Kansas City, is available. Now, this one I like because Andy Reid took McCole Hardman and finally figured that, listen, there's certain things he cannot do down the field. For a guy that runs a 4.3 or maybe close to a sub 4.3, he's got the stiffest hips of anybody that I've ever seen. But when you can set him up for wide receiver screens, reverses, anything that gets him to where he can quickly get going north and south, if he hits a crease with a 1 foot in the ground, he's gone. And that would be something that would be nice for the Cowboys to add. Now, maybe you're thinking what I'm thinking, and that is, why can't Cavante Turpin try to run some of those plays? It's a good question. I also wonder about drafting wide receivers, and do they ever get better here? It's not a knock on anybody in particular, but CeeDee Lamb took, let's admit, a year and a half to sort of reach a level where we think he's a number one wide receiver. And he had top 10 in the NFL draft talent when the Cowboys got him, when he fell to them. So drafting now where they are at 26, I don't think you want to take the plan that you have for this team and use the first pick on a wide receiver, nor honestly do I think you want to do it with a running back, but I would understand if you did it for Bijan Robinson. Just wouldn't be my choice. I'd rather go cornerback, offensive tackle, defensive tackle. We'll get to that. The Cowboys had 7 Pro Bowlers last year, if you remember. Diggs, Tank, and Micah Parsons on defense. Zach is always a Pro Bowler. CeeDee Lamb and Pollard on offense. And there is that name, Cavante Turpin, again. The NFL draft in Kansas City is April 27th through the 29th, so there is still some time. This list and all the lists that you're probably looking up online are evolving. But if I could raise my hand and say the Cowboys are ready for the draft, let's do it now, because I think they've identified 2 guys they might be able to get in the first and the second round that would be difference makers, massive difference makers. So they are Cody Mauch, North Dakota State, offensive tackle. Go watch Cody Mauch. I think it's Mauch, North Dakota State. Go watch the video. Go watch Cody Mauch run the 40. Holy shit. He is large, got a mane of red hair that makes him look like a massive lion, and he can friggin' run. He is quick. He is a mauler, and he is a difference maker. And yet his grade is sort of late first, early second. All right, somehow let's get Cody Mauch from North Dakota State as an offensive tackle, because we're going to be a defense and then run operation. And let's get Mazi Smith from Michigan, defensive tackle. Wait a minute, defensive tackle. I'm all horny about a defensive tackle. I kind of am. Last year, Bruce Feldman's college football freak list included, close to the top of the list, Mazi Smith from Michigan. He is a dominant run, a dominant run defender, which the Cowboys haven't had in the middle of their offensive line in a long time. Add him to Osei Odigizua and whoever else you add in free agency, and maybe the run is always stuffed when you try and run in the middle against the Cowboys. And wouldn't that go with the disposition this team is hoping to have? Mazi Smith has the opportunity here to be along Chris Jones' lines. If you're a big football fan, then you know Chris Jones, defensive tackle of the Chiefs. Defensive tackles, as a rule, don't get many sacks, don't dominate football games. Certainly the Rams have had an all-timer, and now Chris Jones is becoming an all-timer. People think that this guy's pass rushing abilities to go along with the fact that you flatly do not run the football around him make him a great player. I think Cody Mauch and Mazi Smith can be picks 1 and 2. You probably will have to move up early-ish in the second round to get one of them, however the draft falls. But remember, you have 3 or 4 fifth-round draft picks. You have an additional 7th. There are a cachet of picks the Cowboys could use to move up to get what they want in rounds 1 and 2. I want to raise my hand and say, let's do this now. Cody Mauch and Mazi Smith. I may feel completely different in 2 weeks, but at this point, that's where I'm at. Cornerback Eli Rick from Alabama has room to grow, but at this point, he might be able to be had late second, early third. And anybody coming from the SEC and anybody coming from Alabama or Georgia, I just say yes to, and I'll go look at some film. Quentin Johnson of TCU is the wide receiver who has tremendous talent, round 3 or 4, from what I'm understanding at this point, because you're going to draft maybe Max Duggan in round 7. And then I don't know what's going to happen at running back, except that the Cowboys are definitely going to draft one. They may draft 2, depending on where they draft them. I don't anticipate them drafting Bijan Robinson at 26. I can't imagine he makes it to 26, even though there were no running backs drafted last year in the first round. Bijan Robinson looks to be a generational player, one of those guys that's just as effective catching a swing pass or dribbling out of the backfield or screens or whatever. He's good at everything, borderline great at everything. And Bijan Robinson's career in the NFL most likely will be un-effing believable for the first 3 or 4 years. There's just no doubt about that. The Cowboys cornerbacks are Diggs, Jordan Lewis, and Brand, right? The rookie from last year. I'm thumbs up with that. There is no depth past that, and that is part of the reason it will not bother me at all. And this is a very good cornerback draft and a very good offensive tackle draft. Thumbs up to that, too. The Cowboys need both of those. Give me 2 each if you can. So Diggs, Jordan Lewis, and Brand, pretty darn good. You're going to need more depth at the cornerback position. Eli Rick, there are some others that we've talked about. The Cowboys will get a good cornerback that will help this defense as well. It's a defense-first operation. An impactful defense, as we know, who has led the NFL in turnovers the last 2 seasons. You add Micah Parsons and this, I'm telling you, go watch Mozzie Smith and go watch Cody Mauch. Just go watch them and you will see beasts that you want on your football team. At the end, when we watched the last 4 teams try to go to the Super Bowl, what you saw was those teams had more wow football players on their team than our team. Cowboys are a very good team. Those 4 teams had more, whoa, that guy's good. Whoa, that guy's fast. Whoa, that guy makes plays. More of those guys. The Cowboys are probably 2 or 3 guys short of those guys, given all full health, of becoming the team that you want them to be. It can happen in free agency and then in this draft. Defense first, up the run game, simplify the passing game to a quick West Coast passing offense to help your quarterback be better. Be the leader that he already is, but be the guy who doesn't turn the ball over and who doesn't get lost when his eyes start flying around and he loses track of things, okay? It's not his strength rating defenses and getting through 1, 2, 3, 4 checks, especially when there's any pressure. So they're going to simplify this offense. They're going to run the ball more, quicker passing offense, West Coast, if you will, style offense, and then play special teams, punt the football. They have to find a kicker. Depth on the offensive line is the other thing. And the reason that I bring up Cody Mauch and then I bring up tackles is if everything stays as we see it now, Tyler Smith on the left side, re-signing McGovern at left guard, Tyler Baday's at center. We've all warmed to him. He's a good player. Zach's a generational player at right guard. And Terrence Steele comes back at a really good price because of his injury. That's great. Past that, the Cowboys have almost nothing. Matt Waletsko, right, that they drafted last year, I think in round 5, was a teammate of Cody Mauch at North Dakota State. There has to be some good in having those 2 guys together. Waletsko got some compliments from the team as the year went along, but by October, he was out for the season with an injury, so we don't know, and that's your depth. And then the other is Josh Ball from Marshall, and do you know anything about him? Neither do I, and that's it. So if you're going to play defense and run the football, then you better shore up your defense and your offensive line. That's all I got. Played with Cody Mauch. I like that. Mike McCarthy, Dan Quinn, and Bones Fossil, and a whole bunch of other coaches, including up to 10 names that are putting together this new Mike McCarthy offense, are giving the Cowboys an opportunity to do what you want them to do. This team does carry forward momentum, unity. It's been a really good locker room for the last 2 years. A proper attitude and disposition. But what helps, I love the Rick Carlisle word, we don't have the proper disposition, right? So the Mavericks coach all the time. They did in 2011. What helps disposition is the ability to have lots of good football players to sub in and sub out because it's an extraordinarily physical game. If you can maul on the offensive line and you can maul on the defensive line and have people fill in the holes, and you can hit and tackle all season long, then your disposition is one of being a really good football team, and you know it, and you're tough and you're physical and you're strong. And when you get to that Final Four, that's the other thing I noticed. In the Final Four teams in the 2 championship games, the noises that were made by guys coming up and making hits, gang tackling, were loud. They just were. They're loud because everyone is flying to the football. The Cowboys are this close to being that on both sides of the football. So attitude and disposition are certainly helped by the ability to be physical, period. There's a cohesiveness, there's a togetherness, and there's an attitude on this football team. And if you sign those 4 free agents that are Cowboys that we need to stay, then that disposition stays intact, as does the coaching staff. It's a good Cowboys football team. I'm excited doing this with you. We're going to get deeper and deeper into this draft. I will try and get some interviews for us, but I'm excited about this Cowboys football team, and I appreciate you joining me today on Off of the Helmets. I'll see you next Friday right here, courtesy of East Coast Sports Investors. I'm Brady Tinker for Off of the Helmets.